Hi everybody, this is Kathleen Hinesley with Exploring Dimensions for All, and this is part 2 of Mind Frequency Breakthrough Channeled Guidance for the Collective. And if you haven't watched part 1, it would be best to go back and watch part 1. So part 1 kind of involved a channeled message that talked about a monotone frequency that everyone's mind is a bit attuned to right now that's dampening creativity, and then what you could do to change that so that you could tap into your own creativity. So it involved listening to water coming from a faucet, listening to fire, especially the crackling sounds that it can make, and then making your own tone. So I went ahead and experimented with this, and I did have some creative breakthrough afterwards, but first let me tell you what I experienced when I was trying to do it. So first of all, I noticed that there is a sound of water, but most of the sound is produced by what it comes through and what it goes to. So it comes out of something and there's a running sound, and then it hits something and there's a running sound, which is fine. So I went ahead and I did my right ear and my left ear. I wasn't quite sure how long to do it. I did it, I don't know, like 30 seconds on each side, something like that. And then I took a lighter and I burned a piece of paper into my sink because I didn't want to cause, a fire. But really, that wasn't very loud. And I found myself having to lean in with my ears to actually hear the crackling sounds. And that won't work, of course, because your hair can catch on fire. So what I would recommend is that people do like some sticks in a large metal bowl, or maybe on the floor of their shower or inside of their tub or something like that, and literally create a bit of a forest fire, best done in your yard, away from things that can actually cause a fire, obviously. But so you can actually get the sound of the crackling and the sound of what happens when the fire has wind hitting it and things like that. I didn't feel like I got enough of that. And then what I did is I picked a tone, and I picked this tone, and I went, and I did that for about 3 minutes. And what you might have noticed from me doing that is that it undulates a little bit. Now I'm in my 50s. Maybe people who are really good at singing can hold a continuous tone, but mine kind of went up and down a little bit. But nevertheless, the very fact that it was a sound that I was making really did start clearing my mind a lot. So then afterwards, I got a piece of paper and a pen, and I did this all really fast because I figured I'd better do these steps as quickly as possible, kind of close together. So then I got a pen and a piece of paper, and at first it seemed like I was in a bit of a dream state, and I just saw like a barn gate, and I thought, well, this is weird. Maybe I'm just going to end up writing poetry because I like to write poetry. So I went ahead and I wrote what I was thinking. It didn't really make any sense in the beginning. I'll go ahead and read it to you. I just wrote, barn doors are for animals. People must be higher. They must oversee things happening in the yard. On the spinning earth, telescopes are not of use in this area. Now that ended up connecting to something that happened later in my creativity. So that was kind of, I just thought, well, that's not a poem, So anyway, I went on. I just thought, well, I'll just go with this process. I'll just let my imagination take over. So I started to remember this activity that I did in like an alternative school. I think I was in the 2nd or 3rd grade. And we would make all these different ethnic traditional crafts from Africa and from Central America and from China. And at one point we were making God's eyes out of yarn, which apparently an indigenous group of people did it in Mexico before the people came from Spain in the 1500s. And so I'm in rural Cambodia right now, so I don't have a craft store to go to. There's no like Michael's Arts and Crafts. So I went and I got 2 sticks and some medical kind of wrapping to just show you to kind of visually show you what I got on a creative thought level. So here's what I wrote. So I was reminded of making a God's eye in school. We were given 2 sticks to cross, and then we were to weave them together with the yarn by going over and under the sticks, which pointed in the 4 directions. Then I wrote the regular patterns of moving the yarn up and down on the four corners of the sticks, moving in regular patterns. And then I mentioned needle point or cross stitch, anything that involves this up and down motion, can help to connect us to our regular rhythm established by people in the past. And then I wrote around and around, weaving with our hands, up and down, revivifying the four cardinal directions in the circle they compose, can get us back in tune with ourselves, with our rhythm. So it was almost like I was making my own channeling. There wasn't like another personality kind of giving me information. It was like I was giving myself information. So anyhow, I got a couple of sticks, and just to kind of show you what I was thinking and feeling. So we kind of would just go under, and then we would go over, and then under, and then over, and then under, and then over. And these would be different colors, under and over. And the feeling that I got was doing this with your body could help to give you a more regular rhythm and kind of help to straighten you out a little bit, connect you with human past. Okay, so but none of that stuff was really very interesting to me. Then I had what I would call an inventor's breakthrough. So I imagine that when people invent something, there must be some like flash of light that comes to them, or some sort of like creative impulse that comes to them. I know I wrote a book called Welcome to Infinity, exploring ancient and modern techniques for collaborating with otherworldly beings. I believe it's still available on Amazon. And anyway, when I self-published it, but when I wrote it, I got like a lot of these ideas and feelings, and they just seemed to come in from somewhere. I wasn't sure from where. So I'm calling this my inventor's breakthrough. Now, it does involve a laser beam and laser technology. Now, what I will say is that in 1981, when I was 17 years old, my second job was working at an exploratory science museum in San Francisco. I worked at the Exploratorium, and I was responsible for doing two demonstrations. One was I dissected a cow's eye in front of visitors. The second one was I showed them how a red laser beam worked. I kind of did a few interesting things with a red laser beam. I think they were kind of new at the time. I did explain how it worked. I did not understand how it worked. I remember feeling really nervous and embarrassed whenever I did that demonstration, but it's possible that this inventor's breakthrough that I'm now going to talk to you about was able to use some memory that is stored somewhere in my brain from this job that I had. But it applies to something different that I had never thought about at all. So here's what I wrote. This is what came to me. There is a new kind of telescope, and that's interesting because it goes back to what I thought was going to be a poem, telescope. Okay. There's a new kind of telescope device needed at this time that will allow us to peer into microscopic aspects of large space rocks, planets, and stars. There's a missing element we don't understand, a way in which what is happening out there corresponds to what is happening here. There is a way to compare the regular microscopic patterns of things found in space with things already known on Earth. And what I actually sensed was that there were rhythmic things happening at a microscopic level in space that were actually matching exactly what was happening here inside our bodies and in our environments, and that we could learn something from this, and that it was very important. And then I drew a picture, and this picture may have come a bit from the demonstration that I did, but it felt at the time like it was coming in like straight knowledge or just coming in, but I'm sure some of it must have had something to do with memory. So anyhow, here's the picture that I drew, and basically there were things or visual elements coming in here, and then it turned into a laser beam here, and then there was some kind of metallic maze thing that it went through. This is like, I got the feeling this was an invention that needed to be invented. Now, it may already be being used. I do not know. But this is what I got. So then it went through like a metallic maze of some sort. Then it passed through a gas, and I wrote helium ? Now, I'm pretty sure I remember helium from the lectures that I did in 1981. I think I remember that a little bit. So here's helium gas. Then I have a mirror. I could have remembered the mirror. Then I have a lens. So the lens is like a magnifier. Okay, so of course I was curious and I thought, well, what's going on here, right? So I went online and I typed in lasers and microscopes and, things like that. So I found out that there's something called a helium neon laser. And they used to be used more commonly with something called confocal microscopes. And there's something called a confocal laser scanning microscope. But what I wrote after I drew this was a maze of metallic shapes that the laser goes through allow it to pick up aspects that match with our ability to see and understand with the naked eye. A gas is used to reflect this information onto a lens, making it possible to discern patterns that are moving in space with us. And here's the part that I think is different. I'm aware that they're doing some analysis of like potential information that came back from the Chang'e 4 mission to the moon. They've been for a long time, but especially now, they've been trying to figure out if there's elements of biological life in space or water molecules, things like that. But what I got that I think is different is that there's patterns going on somehow in space that we need to be able to understand are moving with us. So in other words, perhaps there's microscopic patterns on the sun or on the moon that are doing this, and at the same exact time, they're doing this in our bodies or in things on the earth, and that there's a connection here and that it needs to be recognized. So I'd call that sort of like an inventor's breakthrough vision. If anybody knows anything about this, feel free to comment below. Maybe this is already being done. In any case, I felt good about the fact that I went through a bit of a dream-like state, but then I came through to what I would call like a straight knowledge state where I was just getting in information, pulling it in, and it was related to something new, which I would call creative. Like that would be a creative production activity as opposed to a receptive activity, which I talked about in the last video was what people were getting from this monotone frequency. So I'm going to go ahead and keep on doing this exercise every day to see if I can get my creativity flowing more. I hope this video has been useful to you and interesting for you. Please comment below if you know something about this, because I don't remember anything except for little tiny snippets of my 1981 laser technology demo, which I probably involved helium. So, there was a little lights out moment in my room. But anyhow, all right. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please share. Please like. Please subscribe if you haven't. And have a wonderful day. Lights are flickering on and off now. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye.